relax, release the hurt. Some people never lose, they never felt the news of oppression by others who win only when they abuse. How we treat the bottom, where you go is where you come from. Hold up your head, give power to the truth. We give power to the people. We give it power to the people. We give it power to the people. We give it power to the people. We got power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. We got that power to the people. Give him that power to the people. Like the king that he is to the people. Make sure you give power to the people. Give your queen power to the people. Your empress power to the people. Say his name to the people. Don't be afraid to the people. Just walk it out to the people. Give power to the people. And we got power to the people. 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 To the people. To the people. Give it up to the people. Give it up to the people. To the people.
All right, welcome everybody to Music in Action with Cole Williams. My name is Lewis. I work at Rope-a-Dope, and I just want to take a quick minute to explain why we do this. It's been my experience that musicians are not only pouring their creativity, their hearts, and their beauty and joy into the world, but that they're also very much involved in communities around the planet. And they take this human business very seriously, and for that we respect them, and we want to have an ongoing dialogue with these musicians and with fans and with people, with humans everywhere. And this is one way that we do it. I want to introduce our host, the person behind all of this. I don't know how I missed this on the bio this morning or in previous episodes, but hailing from Brooklyn, New York. Shout out to Brooklyn.
You missed
You know how you read these days. Cole Williams is a musician, a multi-instrumentalist, a recording artist, a WWOZ, shout out to WWOZ, radio host, and a relentless advocate for human rights. I think what sets her apart in the journey is her ability to balance both the career in music, which is in and of itself a challenge, but also a passion and action for social justice. So I'm gonna let Cole talk more about everything that she does. I'm very excited for this episode because we also have a very special guest patched in from London, which whom Cole will announce. And this is going to be a really fun conversation with. For everyone out there listening, watching, with two people who really are leaders in the world. And leadership is not a title, and it's not a position in Washington or any other major country. It's about the things that you do to help people. So, Cole Williams, welcome. It's good to see you.
Lewis, it's always a pleasure to see you. I don't know where to go with that kind of introduction, but I'll just get real.
Let's do it.
Because I think for me, that's why I do what I do. So for those of you that don't know me, I started off as an aspiring singer, playing piano in church, playing classical piano growing up, always feeling like I was in service to people. I've always loved helping. And I would say like the more experiences that I've had and the older that I've gotten, I've been a lot more intentional about how I'm serving and who I'm serving and what does serving actually look like. And like everybody, the pandemic, the global shutdown, we didn't know what was gonna happen. We thought maybe the world was gonna end. But for me, I know that starting this Love Under the Bridge concert series for the Houseless, with the Houseless, 1 week before the pandemic, and not being able to follow through with performing for the unhoused, but then thinking, how can I redirect? Knowing that God did not place me with any person in any situation for me not to do something. And so we pivoted and started speaking to people and building relationships. And the more that I started speaking to the houseless is the more that I found I had in common with them. We all have a story. We're all working through some sort of personal trauma. And now it feels like my life's work and my life's passion, because I am so happy to wake up every Saturday morning, whether I'm hungover, whether I'm tired from a show the night before, to get groceries from Trader Joe's or Culture Aid NOLA, two of our food sponsors, and then work with the houseless, with the poor community, with the prosperous community. We're all there on the same level playing field, bagging groceries and taking them to the people most in need. And I've been able to find myself through serving. And that's why I'm so happy to be here with Rope-A-Dope and with our special guest who I'll introduce very shortly, once a month, because it's an opportunity for me to share solution-oriented organizing that I learned from my mentor, the late Curtis Muhammad, whom he was taught by Ella Baker, and that is that you go to the poorest, the ones most in need, and that's how you lift up humanity, because everybody rises, nobody falls off. And I think that is a misconception to think that if we're serving the people least in need, that it's taking away something from anyone else. What actually happens is that we build stronger communities. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce a woman. Every time I look at this woman, I see myself. It's so uncanny. She is my soul sister. She is a multidisciplinary poet, singer, activist, humanitarian, Lisa Marie Simmons. Thank you so much for being on this program with us today, but also for being my friend and being an inspiration. I learned so much from you. Can you share with our audience, just tell them a little bit about who you are, where you come from, how you became an entertainer, and then why it's important for you to raise underserved voices in your work?
Oh, just a little question, just a little bit. Just thank you, Cole.
And it begins.
In 10 words or less.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I would do just about anything for you. We'll bury the bodies. No, I really would. I would do just about anything for you. I love you, and I feel really thankful for the invitation and to be here and to talk to these things that are so important. So, to introduce myself a little bit, how I became a musician is one aspect of the questions that you asked, or how I became an artist, right? I lived through a lot of trauma. You were talking earlier about trauma, that we all go through it, and there's different levels and all the rest of it. But I had a tumultuous childhood, a really difficult childhood, and what lifted me always was music. I had a little radio, that's how old I am. I had a little radio on the side of my bed, and to escape all of the sort of the chaos that was going around in the house, I would put that next to my ear, and it would take me places. And it also made me feel less alone. I could hear Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald is more joyful, but Billie really spoke to me. That and literature were two things that made me see. I'm a transracial adoptee, which means I was adopted by a white woman and raised in Boulder, Colorado, which is a white community, as a Black girl. And so that was very difficult. And finding music and literature that I could identify with and that I could see myself in was fundamental. And so now when I write music, poetry, essays, whatever I'm working on, I'm thinking of that little girl and all those little girls and boys and non-binary people across the world who I might touch in the same way that I was touched with that. And it's very much about passing forward what helped me to heal from the trauma that I dealt with. So that's, I think, how I came to understand the importance of giving back. I don't like that expression because it's overused, right? But of just being human, just being human. is so impactful, and there's ripples that spread. And let me just mention Lewis here for a quick moment. He introduced us because we're on the same label, this beautiful, wonderful label that is Rope-A-Dope. And he's introduced me to a lot of people, and I've made music that I would not have made if Lewis hadn't hooked me up with these people. I've created, and now it's spreading. I've created so much art because of his facilitating this. And you and I also will be having something that's going to be coming out that we worked on together. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming out.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous, but I think the importance of community and of knowing that the pebble that you throw into the pond is going to have so much effect as it goes out. Did I answer your questions?
You did. And you made me think of something, even just by you bringing Lewis into the conversation, how much a community of support is really necessary. A community that supports one another and that plants seeds into one another, not with the expectation of getting something exactly the same in return, but just knowing that if you do well, I do well, and we all do well. And I think you just described that microcosm with us.
Yes, it's so important, and this is a huge subject in my album, Note Speak 12, which is out right now, but it's all about the interconnectedness of all sentient beings. We are all, what hurts me hurts you, what benefits you benefits me. That concept is enormous, important, and so true, and something that I've lived throughout my life and felt throughout my life. And I, like you, from a young age, was cognizant of that. And like you, and I think it took me longer because you're a little bit younger than I am, to come to the idea of consciously, intentionally figuring out the best ways that I could do that and be a part of a healing force, right? It took time because even your energy can, I was, sort of spread. And when it's focused, I think we could have a greater capacity for beauty and helpfulness and healing, right?
Absolutely.
I want to jump in if you don't mind, Cole.
If you don't mind. Come on in.
So you
Lisa, the water's warm.
First of all, you ever have that feeling that you're just kind of like outranked and you really probably shouldn't be at the event? Kind of feel that way right now. But you've already answered some of the questions that I had, or the key. You've answered part of the key question that I have. And what I really want to try to do today, if possible, is let viewers understand what I see. Right? And we live in a quote interesting world is all I'll say. But the question is, why do you do what you do? Right? Cole, you and I spoke about this a little bit last week, and I have a sense of why, but I'd like to try to get it to people who maybe view things in a less comprehensive way, or haven't even thought about it yet. It's like, well, you're a musician, you make music, so I buy your album and I listen to your music and I like your music. There's this kind of flattened out thing. Why, with such a challenging thing as a musician, it's a life, and I get why you would make music because it's who you are, but why also dig into these social justice issues and spend your time trying to help others? I do want to put the disclaimer out. Let's refrain from the obvious reason is because things are wrong. Why do you do it personally? What does it bring to you? Cole, can we start? There.
Yeah. I know we talked about it, but it feels so deep. Like I need to go deeper. Well, I'll say this. We all make music for different reasons. So I had to go deeply into, why do I want to be a musician? Why do I record and write songs? and I write songs to heal. Like, I actually think that the wisdom is in the stories and the testimonies. And as a musician, we're in a very anointed group. We were given this gift of music. Musicians can say things that people can't say in speeches. Things that would seem hateful in a speech can go over just magically in a song, because something about it, the je ne sais quoi, brings us together. So when I realized that I was making music for purpose, and I decided that I had to do it intentionally, well, then it's my mission to not only speak my stories and my personal testimony, which is going through personal trauma with relationships, personal family trauma, but it's also about reflecting the stories of the people that I'm engaging with, the houseless. What are their stories? Being formerly incarcerated, lack of education, lack of resources, an alcoholic that needs some support, mental health care. There are all these reasons. Somebody just does not become homeless because they can't pay their rent. And so now I'm in this wonderful position that feels heavy to other people, but it doesn't feel heavy to me, because I can see in real time what happens when you plant seeds. For example, the block that where we took over the blighted home and started working on it, I watched that block become a totally different block in 3 years, meaning people are picking up their trash. People are putting their trash where it needs to go. People are more respectful. There's less crime. People are more accountable for that block because people are caring and they're taking ownership. So it doesn't feel like a task. It doesn't feel like a struggle for me to be an activist or a social justice worker with the unhoused. It feels like a responsibility that I gladly accept. If I'm breathing this air, if I'm drinking this water, if I'm going to use up the natural resources, then I want to give something back into my community, whether I see it in my lifetime or not. I'm about planting those seeds for all generations.
Did you see results right away? You're not looking at some goal, like some unattainable. I mean, the goal is there, but you see results immediately.
The goal is, the goal is that this is second nature, and that taking care of one another is not something that we have to think about, but that we do naturally. But I'm looking at the SMART goals, which is I've seen that one block be cleaned up. I've seen houseless people take ownership. So like they're calling me asking, are we coming in? I have a friend, Mr. Mimi. He's houseless, and he's one of my closest friends. He reminds me of my uncle. He's so respectful. And so in having this big goal, I've been able to see these SMART goals. Mm-hmm. I've been able to train volunteers the way that I was trained and take the time with them and test my patience, but it's not really testing it, but it's just expanding it. So I grow with every step, with everything that seems like a step back. It's a set up, not a setback. Mm-hmm. And I think it's about having a solution-oriented approach, meaning I'm always looking for the roses and I pull out the weeds, and it's completely transparent, meaning we are open about everything. We're speaking transparently. Just there's nothing in our organization that's a secret. So I don't have a certain amount of information for the houseless versus the housed. Mm-hmm. We're all in the same playing field in practice. And I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes I don't realize that I'm practicing supremacy because I've grown up in this society. And then maybe a reaction isn't the reaction that I wanted. It makes me look at myself and reflect. So I think if we're always in a space of how can I become better? How can I use lessons as constructive critique instead of criticism to push me down? I think that everything is possible. And I've grown as a person by working with the least of ours and serving. They've humbled me. So it's just like, I have to share this message. And I'm just waiting for more people to hear, but it happens little by little. I'm patient. Yeah. What do you think, Lisa?
Lisa, yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. Every time that you and I speak, and we speak once a week, so we can let that be known, I have to write down the words that you say, because there's so much beauty. I'm looking for the roses and pulling up the weeds, right? I that resonates with me so much. Also this idea of, I wrote down poetry speaking truth in a way that's palatable. a way of addressing issues that are out there in the world that for some people might be hard to swallow or to look at. And through poetry, through music, through art in general, there's a way to get a message across that it's almost in a subconscious manner. You're able to serve this message in a more palatable manner. I think that stories, and I say this all the time, I think that stories unite. And this is another thing that you touched on about the fact that it's universal. We all have goals, we all love, we all have haters. We all, it's things that we all deal with. And so to be able to speak to those things is a way to reach people's hearts. What else did you say? I guess the original question was why do we do it in a deeper manner, is what Lewis asked. And is it hard? It is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to be an artist, to be to really truly delve into your art. I have students sometimes that are writing poetry or music, and if they ask about being famous, I know that's probably not somebody who's going to last the long haul. Right? Because that's not why we're here. And what is fame? And what is success? How do we categorize that? And I think the level of success is, are you a good human? Are you looking out for everybody who's next to you? And there's so many small ways of doing that. You're doing an enormous thing. And I wish I lived in New Orleans just so I could join you every Saturday morning, hungover or not, and help you on that mission. Right now, the reason that I'm in London, I actually live in Italy, but the reason I'm here in London is because one of my missions is to be a voice piece for the transracial adoption community. And so I'm here. I've got 3 events that I'm doing just to spread awareness and be a support to that community, which is underrepresented. And a lot of people don't even, what is a transracial adoptee? Most people say, what does that mean, to have that experience? And there's not a lot of support out there. So the podcast that I co-host with my friend Dion Draper, who's here, that we celebrated yesterday, the season finale, is about that. It's about reaching out to these people who do not have a voice, and it was so, yesterday, the season finale, it was so touching to have people come up and say, oh my gosh, I've listened to the whole podcast, and there's somebody who's had this experience. Like, I thought I was alone, but this is such a strange thing, and I'm not. There's other people there, and it's such a lift. Community, I think a lot of what you do is also about that. It's about creating community, and that's such a boon and such a buoy to our senses in every single way. So if I can be a part of that, it is not, as you said, it's not heavy to do this work. It's tiring. It can be exhausting. It's never ending. As you said, we won't see all the ripples and repercussions of what we do. But we do need to see those little things step by step. And so in my exhaustion last night, to see this community that I had a hand in bringing together and crying with all these people and sharing our stories, was so incredibly satisfying as well, to know that I'm doing something good.
You're making me think of how much progress we can make within ourselves when we realize that we're not alone. We're not the only ones. We're all some kind of case study, some textbook case. And I think what you're doing with transracial men, women, non-binary,
yes,
it's wonderful, because you grew up feeling alone. And all these people that grew up feeling alone now get to recognize my experience, even though it didn't feel good, but I wasn't the only one. And now I can shed, and now I can live my life and improve, get better. To move forward, we kind of got to shed these things that are holding us back, these shackles.
100%, and when there's somebody who's maybe been through it before you have, there's a path that you can follow. There's a road, there's a map. to find a way to feel good and to know that this is not something that you have to live like any shame. We talked last night about shame, about fear, about being excluded. You know, the problem I think with, and I don't want to get off topic. I know that we're here for your mission, which is so essential and so important. But there are corollaries things with this, right? Yeah. And I think one of the things that I noted last night were this desire, this strong desire for, can you give me some tips? Can you let me know what it is that I can do to heal? Because of course, you know, if we're hurt and we're damaged and we're having a hard time, we're going to put that on other people in the same way that your light that you have that shines so brightly, everything that you do. And I've seen you, like everyone that you talk to and the way that you approach people, it's in the smallest encounter. That's going to change. That can change people's lives. It's not a small thing. And we just have to be confident of that and know that with each interaction, just to be able to give the best of us. And again, I'm not saying like, we're not saints. You and I are not saints. I know that. But we do work really, really, really hard at being kind and generous, you know, and actively listen.
Thank you both. I just wanted to take a quick moment for people who are watching and mention that this is Music in Action with Cole Williams. We're going to have some inspirations that keep Cole going. She's going to resume that piece. We'll also have some good music coming up. Stay tuned. I want to make one little observation before we go on. And that is, I am clearly seeing the connection between music and the work that you do in the process of hearing you speak. Ethan Hawke talks about the importance of music and says that we start to search for music when we are in crisis. And what we're looking for is for someone who has had the same experience as us, to see how they got through it. And that's what I hear you are both doing. So with that station break, I'll pass it off to Cole Williams. Cole, where are we going next?
I'd actually like to cue Cutaway One for some more inspiration from my mentor, the late Curtis Brown.
Let me see if my mind is still capable of thinking of logical things here and make that happen.
We live, baby, we live.
It's no reason because we have a PhD, or a master's, or a BA, or BS from a university that we have more genius than anybody else. We have to approach each human being with the dignity and the expectation that we can discover genius we never even dreamed of, particularly when you're talking about the pain and suffering of oppression. How can we possibly know from a classroom academic setting can we discover how to eliminate poverty? How to stop the suffering that people have as a result of white supremacy and racism? Somebody got to ask the people who's suffering. I mean, the doctor even do that. What do you hurt?
And we're back.
Thank you, Louis. You know, Lisa and Louis, that is my all-time favorite Curtis quote. He says, a doctor even does that. Where do you hurt? And in context, you know, we've always had conversations about like why he was anti-establishment, particularly with a nonprofit. And this is no offense to anyone working with a nonprofit or any nonprofits, but this establishment where there's nobody sitting at the table that's a part of the community that you're serving. How informed, you know, is the establishment to the community needs if they're not participating, they're not speaking with those that are in need. So it seems like such a simple thing, but, you know, for example, with the Houseless at all these organizations, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that's formerly houseless or currently a houseless that they're consulting with. And I just, you know, think that if we actually brought those voices in to be heard, every voice matters, how much further we could go, you know?
I am in deep agreement with that. I am in deep agreement. I think that, and this is something that I harp on a lot. But as our institutions, not just in America, but all around the world, but especially in America, are steeped in white supremacy and racism, and so a lot of the things that we have as institutions are informed by that, and I think if we're not listening to who we're trying to serve, we're allowing that to seep into our actions. I'm looking desperately for this quote. I met a friend of mine for lunch today, and she was talking about the UK, and it was just a silly conversation about wine. And she said, "Why would anybody drink the wine in UK? Because the soil is made of colonization and bitterness." Right? Isn't that interesting? Why do you try to plant something that is born of that white supremacy? Like let's get rid of that layer first.
Mhm.
And as you said, if we go directly to the source, like let's talk to who wants to be heard.
Yeah, I like that you said that you brought up white supremacy. I always, I think to this day, still feel like I have to gear myself up to say white supremacy in the space of white people because it feels so offensive. Like I'm feeling their offense, and I think that that's the problem right there. That we know that we have a problem if I can't state white supremacy. And this is what I learned from Curtis because we talked about white supremacy a lot before he passed away. Some of the biggest purveyors of white supremacy are not white people, but are Black people and Asian people and every other people, because in order to survive in the white supremacist complex, you have to practice white supremacy. So I think that we really have to educate ourselves about like what white supremacy is. It could be Black supremacy if Black people were doing what white people have historically done. So we can interchange that race line, but it's about like the supreme being controls all and controls the narrative. And it's embedded in us. It's embedded in society. I see it all the time. Even when I'm speaking about the houseless issue with like council people and people that are working with the houseless, they're trying to fit my solutions into a box that's been created by the nonprofit structure. When this is about we as people have the right to take care of our people, our community. In the Declaration of Independence, we the people have the right to elect a government to enforce our ideals. And if that government does not enforce our ideals, we the people have the right to take down that government and instate a new government that serves the people. So, you know, these words are very clear. And right now, everything feels upside down and in action and practice. That's why I show up every week. And that's, you know, why I know that you show up, is that in practice, we're hoping that people see our actions and see that we're practicing what we're preaching and that we're modeling the behavior. And so that's my only hope. What do you think, Lise?
Oh my gosh, so many things that I love that you said. Yeah, this it's such a dirty word, you know, dirty words, white supremacy. We can't, we're not allowed to say that. It makes me so angry because if we can't say it and we can't name it, we can't point our fingers at it, how are we going to change it? And it is just look at our laws, look at the way our country is built, look at what is important in our country. Right? Despite the fact that I live in Italy, I still consider myself to be an American. I was raised there. I drank that water that is tainted. You know, I breathe that air. And if we can't look at ourselves, and I do, just like you, I look at conversations that I have sometimes, and I and think about, oh my goodness, you know, I'm falling into that trap of what I was steeped in, right? I haven't, you know, completely gotten rid of it, I don't think. And I think it's important to realize that to be critical of oneself, not just of the system, but I'm critical of myself as well when I'm the decisions that I make and the ways that I try to go forward and trying to, you know, I get stuck in trying to work the system because I want to make progress. I want to make change. So I'm going to try to go with the system. But it is a flawed system, right? And if we can't name that, if we can't say that, if we can't see it, then there is no change. So, and that's something that I'm just recently, I guess it's just in the last year or so, that I'm feeling really comfortable naming white supremacy. And you know this, we've had this conversation before. I feel really good saying it because it's true.
You know, so I have a lot of people that they think the work is angry work. They think it's that you're angry all the time if you're working in social justice or you're advocating, right? It seems like it's hard work, so they're just like, you're waking up to do this, or you're traveling to speak to, you know, other people that share your experience. And I think a lot of people find it hard to believe that we actually find joy in our work, but that we also have joyful life experiences. So I wanted to ask you, so in all of this, we're talking about struggle and we're talking about the system that, you know, needs shifting and changing. How do you find joy in doing your work of sharing and organizing and advocating?
It's so true. And that's another, you know, it's another, the brush that is laid, especially across Black women who are advocating, right, and who are activists, is she's the angry Black woman, you know. And it's so funny because both of us are such joyful people. It's ridiculous. You know?
So not angry.
We're almost not allowed. We're not, you know, we're tarred with that brush when it has nothing to do with how we operate and how we promote our activism and our conversations, right? So, but how do I find joy? It's so easy. What is it when you are doing your best to be in this world and use your own experience as forward motion for humanity? How can that not feel good? And when you see the reaction or the effect that your art might have on people, how can that not be joyful, you know? And then there's the act of creation, like where there was nothing, like a moment ago, there was nothing, and now there's a melody, there's a metaphor, there's, you know, that I pulled that, and you know this, there's some, and it's something that we talk about, being in the flow. But I think that you and I and a lot of artists try our hardest to live and stay in that flow as much as we can, and that is the most joyful place.
Mm-hmm.
The flowers, like focusing on those flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you ever feel weary, you know, when you're, so I feel like you've been in this work for a long time, but in the beginning of the work, or even at this juncture, do you ever get a weariness? Because I know people are giving you all this energy, you know. For example, total transparency, like Lewis, that's why I call him Sensei, because he didn't even know what I was going through when he introduced Lisa and I. And then you and I started talking just about trauma and just like my childhood trauma growing up. And we have very similar upbringings, like relationships with our mothers. And it was the first time in my life that I spoke to someone that looks like me, like we could be sisters, but like looks like me, and shared my upbringing. So I was so mindful that I didn't want to like put everything on you, because I was like, oh, finally she gets it. So I just wanted to shed. So anyway, long story longer, you're speaking with a lot of people, you're interacting, engaging. Do you get weary from all that energy?
Ah, you're so lovely. Yeah, of course. And I know you do too. But how can that be a deterrent, you know? Because the work is so important. And then as far as I love that you brought up our personal relationship, because I think it's important and has a lot to do with why we're here together in this moment right here, because we did have this really powerful connection from the very, very beginning. And I think what I've learned to do, as far as the weariness is concerned, is that there are people like you who are receptive and ready to to receive whatever I can offer, right? And to sort of look for that and try to maybe stay away from the people who aren't quite ready yet. That, because that's what drains you and drains your energy. And so if you can try, and this is some advice for any people who are out there just starting into activism, I think, and this is another thing that we've talked about. I think it's really important to surround yourself with good people who have the same goals that you do, and who are not looking for personal empowerment, and where the ego, people who are able to set their ego aside. People who are, it's also in the music world, right? You want to work with people who are there to elevate the music. So I like constructive criticism. Like, I asked you also about the stuff that we're working together. I'm like, tell me, I want it, like, give it to me. And so if I've got somebody who is, if I'm working with a musician who's offended by a suggestion that I might have about how we can better this piece, I know that's probably not a person I should be working with, because what we want to do, it's all in service of the art, right? And I think with activism, it's all in service of lifting. So the way to combat that weariness, I think, is just, you need time. You need to have time to learn who you can depend on and who you can't. And that's what's so great about our relationship. I mean, we just are so aligned in that purpose.
And you
right?
know, it's almost like when you are that person, you attract those people, so that you and I, you know, are ready for each other, and we just really hit it off. We are just a manifestation of what's already inside of one another, and just able to bring it out.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And the other beautiful thing about this kind of work and this conversation that we're having is that at least I feel that fusion of oneness that we keep talking about. The fact that we are all one being. It's a concept that I've been writing about and really digging into for the last 2 years, just this idea of the interconnectedness of all sentient beings. And when you are in flow and find that person like yourself and like Lewis, and Lewis is exactly the same. I'm so thankful for the day that we met, that he answered my email. He ignored me for a long time, and he said, "No, I don't have any room. I don't have any more room.
Lewis never has no room
on the label for anyone."
Lewis ain't never got no room at the end.
No more room. And I said, "But listen," I wrote him again. I wrote him like 2 or 3 times. And I said, "But you know what? I think you need to listen to it, because I think I've read," and I talked to him about the mission statement on the label, and I said, "There's just something, like, we know we are the same. We're the same. Go listen." And he got back to me. He's like, "Okay, you're in."
I have no choice but to jump in here and defend myself. So and this is interesting, because I'm going to take it from one place to another. So, like, we all have perspectives. Those perspectives are shaped by what we've learned consciously and have been taught consciously, right? So this is a very simple example. You're emailing me, I'm not responding, and your perspective of thought is he's not answering me, meaning it's a no, or he doesn't like what he's heard, right? I can guarantee you it's not the case, right? It's basically about how much time I have on my plate and the things that I'm struggling with or dealing with, and how
the fact that you get 200 emails a day.
I can give you. I'm telling you more about the flow. Like, if an email sits in the inbox for a while, it means I want to get to it. If you got an immediate no, then that would be an actual response, right? It's the not back to me thing, right? But that brings me out. I just want to throw this in. I was going to save it till the end, but you are both talking about, you mentioned white supremacy, you mentioned Italy versus the United States. so much of our world is shaped by definitions, by terms, right? And words. And we have to understand how powerful they are. Why is the North Pole up top? Why is it even called up top, right? And when you were talking about white supremacy, it really hit me because here are two terms, racist and racism. Right? So racist means it's a label. It's a term we use. Racism is a thing we all have to deal with. Right? So the very big difference in those two terms in the sense of how we're going to approach it. And I'm getting the sense from both of you that you're viewing the work that you do as an ongoing process that is both healing for other people and also healing for yourself, and therefore all of us, rather than a name where the conscious brain can just classify it. Ism, not ist, is what I wrote down. So there's a distinction there, and thank you for the intro on that, because I've been trying to escape definition since forever, and trust me, being a record label person, it seems cool, but it's got some very, very heavy definitions that go with it, and we work on that.
Can I jump in? I don't want to interrupt you.
I'm good.
We're running over as usual whenever we all talk. That is fascinating. Very, very true. And what came to mind is a poem or song that Cole and I are working on. The fact that words, though, have power, right? I'm very inspired by Ocean Vuong is the name of this artist and professor who was on a On Being, the podcast by Krista Tippett, which Lewis, that I love, talking about the power of words, and you're so right, and I fall into it too, and just like I was trying to make a joke, teasing about how I got into rope-a-dope and how much I love you, but
I'm very sensitive.
But words do have power, and you're right, and I like what you said about that, about how and it's true, about how I immediately took that as like, he doesn't love me, and interpreted it that way. The poem or the thing that we're working on, Cole and I, one of them is around the language that we use in America to talk about success. And this, again, is not my idea. We want to take it further, but it's Ocean Vuong's idea. It's about, I made a killing, or, I slayed, or like all that language is so pervasive. And why is it that we talk about success and love with a language of violence? Mm-hmm. I'm so intrigued and fascinated by this idea. And Cole and I have been batting this back and forth in our last few conversations, right? Language is important, essential to get it right, and to strip it away. I like the idea that you were saying, Lewis, about stripping it away.
It's a constant.
I think that's why the education system is so shot, because the more we know is the more that we can't be fooled. I also wanted to add that part of healing others and healing myself is also like intentional about the food I put into my body, my vices, the programs that I watch. I'm very, very careful about, like, if I'm watching the news, like how much of the news am I going to watch on a consistent basis? Because those are messages. I see myself craving a pizza if I've seen a pizza commercial. I mean, these things are real because I haven't watched TV in over 10 years and I started watching TV, so I realized. But to kind of bring it back on, what Lisa and I are doing is we are holistically intentional with our lives. Like, this is a life. This is a lifestyle. Like, music and activism, it is like who we are. It's not a thing that we do. It's us. And I think that there's something for everyone to do. There are no small jobs in humanity. And I think people think about this big job. I have to own an organization. I have to wrangle up volunteers. I got to be seen doing this. I need a title. You don't need a title. The only reason that I'm doing this is because somebody had to start. Somebody had to carry on from what Curtis left me, from what he learned from Ella Baker. I'm carrying on something that's been going on for a long time. It's just a new face, like a new slogan, house the houseless. But this has been going on for a while, where we don't regard all people and we don't respect all people. So it starts inside. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so right. It's the smallest thing. It's just being conscious of the fact that that person at the grocery store, that person at this, you know, wherever it is that you are, is having their day. Like, I hate the repetitive "be kind," but it's true. Be kind. Like that's the one first step, right? It's not hard. It feels good. It feels good, and it comes back.
And you know what? They don't talk about, when they say be kind, those moments where somebody stepped on your toe and then gave you an attitude, and how are you going to be kind in that moment, right? So being kind is a teaching moment. So I'll give an example. So when I was traveling back home to Brooklyn, like my old home, I was on the subway. They treat me like a tourist now because I got New Orleans or whatever. Anyway, so I'm waiting for the subway door to open, and this woman is trying to get on the subway and just starts pushing in behind me and pushes me. I don't move. I don't say anything. I wait to get on the train. She sat down, and I walked over to her and I tapped her and I said, next time, don't push me or anybody else if you're trying to get on the subway. It was rude and disrespectful. And then she apologized and said that she was trying to get to work. I said, none of that is my business. I said, but you need to respect people enough that you don't push. We don't do that. And so how do you say, and it was really calm.
And she received that. She received that from you.
So, you know, being kind.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
So they might not, but that doesn't change your directive. So it's always like, I'm always thinking about, it's hard to be kind when someone's being mean. It's easy to love when you're being loved. But those are the spaces where you need to be kind and be loving even more. And, you know, I keep bringing it back to the houseless because that's where I've learned that. They can't give me back the love. They don't have the capacity. They're trying to survive. So just pouring in as I am overflowing, because we can't get what we don't have. As we are overflowing, that spillover goes into the community. So I want to make sure I'm very intentional about where that spillage goes to the
I love that. Yes, yes. And you cannot do this work if you do not fill up. You know, because that's where, when we were talking before about how do you endure, how do you face those hard times, and you're right, that's what it's about. You've got to find a way to fill your cup because you cannot do it otherwise. I do think, you know, there's those old aphorisms. There's some truth in them. You catch more bees with, or what is it? You catch more bees with honey. What is the expression?
Flies.
There's more flies with honey. Thank you, Louis. And I think it's true, and I've seen it in action. Sorry.
Who wants to catch flies? Sorry.
But it's
go on.
The flies are a great metaphor for those problematic individuals. You know, that's what it is. You want to change those flies into something more attractive. But so anyway, I was thinking also about this, and this is something that Louis and I have talked about a lot in philosophy. Louis is a great philosopher, and we both love those kinds of discussions. And it's the idea of setting the ego aside, which is just a constant battle for me. It's every single day of realizing what my ego is and trying to put that aside. And I think that's another great tool in the activist's toolbox.
Absolutely. It's so amazing how many people become activists to become famous activists. You know, and you meet a lot of them in the activist community. And, you know, I like to organize groups of people to teach them how to do what I think they should do based on what I've learned. But the point is for a collective. It's not hierarchical. It is collective agreements. If we only agree on one thing, we agree on that one thing. And I think when we start like having more and more one agreements, then and building that to two agreements, then we start to understand that it's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's about right now, this is what needs to be done. My idea doesn't work right now, but I threw my idea in the pot and my idea helped jumpstart us to this other idea. You know, we're all putting things in. We all have these special gifts and skills and talents. And it's not just being on, you know, The Voice, or it's not just, you know, being a celebrity.
And it's not a competition. Musicians, artists, it's not a competition.
This capitalist society has us thinking lack, and there's no lack of anything. There's an abundance. And if I want us all just to tap into the abundance that we have inside of us and around us. And that's why we're models. Lisa, before I forget, I want to ask you, in your own words, for anybody watching that's a musician and other, you know, why should musicians get involved in the movement for freedom, for the movement for social justice? Why should they get involved in any movement for community?
Why should anyone, not just musicians or creatives, like why should anyone? Because we are a family, because as I said before, what happens to you happens to me, because I don't know other ways to say it. It seems to me, and maybe it's because it seems so logical to me, right? It's hard to explain it because it feels like it should be an easy concept to grasp, but the more you give, the more you get. And we need to heal this world. There's a problem with the way that this world is structured, especially politically. I love what you were talking about, the collective, right? And I think we will self-destruct, and I don't want to be negative, but I think that there is a, you know, we're in a really difficult, hard time right now. And I think we need to rethink how we run this world. And so the reason that people should get involved and do something is that we need to change the direction. And I don't know I'm not saying that I have the solution, but I do know that the way that the world is now, we're heading towards self-destruction, right? And so I think the reason to get involved is to save humanity. Oh, that's grandiose, but I think it's true. I think it's true.
Yeah. I think everybody should get involved. I think apathy is killing us. I think that there's so many people that are just existing. They don't have purpose. You know, they go to church because we've always went to church. They eat chicken on Sundays. We've always eaten chicken on Sundays. It's so interesting, the deeper I get into this work and the deeper I get into being a musician and speaking with you, how much I realize a lot of people don't have purpose. And I think that when you have purpose in your life, you understand what your place is in life. And so then it makes you more aware of, oh, this is why I should get involved. And okay, I don't have time to do this all the time, but I can do this in my own way. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. You know, it's about apathy. Apathy is a killer. I want to speak in Italian now because I'm getting excited. A semofera, which is a sleeping drug. It's like a sleeping pill. Apathy. It just puts us to sleep. And our phones and our computer screens and our own little world, and we are the stars in our own little world. Again, setting aside the ego, thinking about the collective. It is empowering, it's powerful. And if you don't have something, and I said last night in the meeting that we had, or the season finale, that the best thing that you can do if you're hurting as anyone is to find what feeds you, what you're good at, what makes you feel like you're in the flow, whatever it is. Like, do the thing that you're here to do, your purpose, what you said. Yeah.
I know we're running low on time, Nicole. I'm conscious of this is your show, but I really want to comment on that if that's okay. I think that I've been a doer all my life, and then I hit a spot this year where I didn't really want to do anything.
And I
and
got to experience what it's like
for
for
someone who just doesn't have that motivation and that drive.
And let me tell you, it's not a very comfortable place. What can a person do if they're under that quote apathy? No disrespect, Lisa, but finding what you're good at and finding what your purpose is. I don't think I've ever had a purpose. I just wanted to do some things. So how does a person get out from under when you're at your most, whatever depressed moment? How do you begin again? How do you get out from that? Because I don't think it's as easy as I've found my inspiration and now I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to go do it. I think it's again it's ism versus is. It's something to take steps towards, not to define. If that makes sense. So how do you do it? How can one get out from under that haze?
Right. I think there's nuances, and I found that really interesting. And I know the moment that you're talking about in your own life. I think that, okay, first of all, we're talking in sort of these broad general terms. I don't like the broad general terms. I don't like the, purpose necessarily, that word. And you say you don't have a purpose, Lewis, but what it is, one of the things that you've been doing for a long, long time is bringing people together, and all of those things that you do create these ripples. And I think that's part of what feeds you and what feeds the world. I think and so whether you consciously label that as your purpose or not, despite that,
I'm just looking for simple steps. Like what would be the first step for a person to get out the door and not be apathetic? Yeah.
Right. Do you go first, or I don't want to take over?
Go first because I have to plug in my my laptop. So you go first. I'm listening.
Simple steps, I think, is it's taking care of yourself. It's listening to your body. It's a lot of what Cole was talking about before, what you're putting into your body, exercising, all of and these are things that you can find easily online about depression, but it depends on the levels. Like I said, there's nuances to what that apathy is. Is it apathy or is it a depression? Is it an imbalance? What is it? The very, very first step is to be as healthy as possible. And that doesn't mean, I smoke my 3 cigarettes a day. I like my tipple. I like my wine. I'm not saying that you need to be like pure and clean. Every person is different. Maybe you do. But I think listening to your body, Lewis, that I'm huge on meditation, and that's not for everybody, but whether it's meditation or prayer or like looking and trying to seek outside of yourself, the source, whatever you want to call it, to look for that and to live in that. And it might be that art brings you there in some way. It might be music, it might be poetry, but to find something that feeds that part of your soul, to me, that's something that can bring you out of apathy. And to me, that seems like a simple thing. And maybe I'm, again, you might think but that's what works for me. And
okay. I'm satisfied. Yeah.
I think it's nuanced.
I've talked way too much. I'm going to turn it back to you. Tell us where we're going.
Well, I wanted to actually speak into that too. I think there's like a thing in our society that we unconsciously do where we put the cart before the horse, figuratively. We think that we have to be in a space of feeling this way in order to do this thing. So for example, I'll share my own experience. So Curtis Muhammad, my mentor, I was actually one of his caregivers the last 6 months of his life. When he passed away, that was a big hit. That was like a father figure, just somebody that brought me into this movement and taught me all this stuff. So I just lost like a big pillar, a big support in my life. And every day for about a year was a struggle to get up out of bed. And the only thing that got me up out of bed was thinking how fortunate I am. If not like for God, I wouldn't have met Curtis, that I got like a gift that's worth more than any currency on this planet. The knowledge of organizing, and somebody that showed me what it really means to love my people and to love humanity in practice. So I didn't want to go volunteer. I didn't want to get up out of bed and go to the grocery store. I didn't want to do any gigs. I didn't feel like singing. I just wanted to lay in bed and be depressed, quite frankly. And nobody knows this because I still showed up. I still have my lashes on. I still got my nails done. But I knew where I needed to be. And at a certain point, I allowed myself to feel bad. Like I didn't stop feeling guilty for feeling bad. It's okay to feel bad. I just didn't want to feel bad for the rest of my life. So I knew, okay, I want to feel better, and better is going to be me just being happy to get out of bed. So like every day I had to be fully present in that day, and sometimes each moment. So yeah, like the things Lisa's saying, listening to music, art. I find meditation to be different. Some days I'll listen to theta waves. Some days I'll do a guided meditation. Sometimes I'll do something silent and breath work. So I think like this capitalist society, in order to try to sell us all these things, says meditation looks like this and this. You find what works for you. And it is a gumbo. It is like your own pack of, these are my go-tos for feeling better. And part of mine also, I have a therapist. I go to therapy. Like every week, I go to therapy. And I just have a space where I talk to someone that's not in my circle, so I don't have to like burden the people in my lives with my problems all the time, because they're not also the best equipped to deal with them. So it's like all this healing work going on the inside, so that I'm able to like really show up and be present for other people, because I kind of know what they're going through. I haven't been homeless myself, but I've been taking care of myself for a long time. Like emotionally, I've been on my own since 14. Like physically, financially, I've been on my own since 17. And like I had a safety net. Like I don't know what it is to like be able to go home and say like, Mom, can I get like $10,000 or 20,000 or, like these small chunks of cash or big chunks, whatever. But that's not my experience. And no offense to my family, but I had to fight for myself, and I had to strive for myself, and I had to thrive. And I had to say to myself, Cole, what does success look like for you? And once I was okay with what it looks like for me, and right now I'll say, success looks like all of my volunteers are showing up, or if they're not showing up, they're communicating well with me. They feel like they can trust me enough to say I'm not going to be there. It looks like me feeling happy or finding a reason to be happy when I'm sad. It's like being okay with my body. Like if I'm bloated, being all right. Like, okay, I'm pretty, whatever it is, not being hard on myself. And every day it's going to be a challenge, because that's just what it is. That's life. That's the platter, So now that I got the platter, let me deal with the platter. And not that it could be worse, but oh my goodness, I'm so blessed. I look around me so it's like, let's count the blessings first before we start counting the other stuff. And when we count the blessings first, like the list for blessings usually is more than the list of the booby jooby.
Yeah, you can start simple. Like, oh my gosh,
That's why I'm trying to
that I was in the hospital for 3 months with my knee, right? Just to be thankful that, oh my goodness, my knees are working. They carried me these 57 years. These knees carried me, and rather than laying there, and it was hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but to be able to look for the gratitude in that, and be like, well, look at all these things that I've done, with that. You're absolutely right. To try to find the smallest joy wherever you can find it is the key to moving forward. You're so right.
Taking stock. Taking stock.
Oh,
real stock. Counting what's really happening.
It really is. And I think, we watch documentaries about the Black Panther movement. about SNCC, about Dr. Martin Luther King, about Malcolm X. We talked about all these figures, Miriam Makeba. Let's go to the musicians and activists, Harry Belafonte, Nina Simone. And it seems
James
so
Baldwin.
James Baldwin. It, you know, like you get the best photographs and the best sound bites. But when they were doing it, they weren't doing it to be written about and documented. They were doing it because this had to be done. They were reflecting the times. This is my job. So I think in particular with musicians, I want us to remember, like, there is a space for all music. There's a space for entertaining music that maybe doesn't say anything profound, but it's fun and it's catchy. And there's a space for, you know, romantic music. And there's a space for a social justice music. There's a space for all this kind of music. The problem is that when the powers that be say, we want to put all our backing behind this, and we want to sort of diminish just anything that's going on to the left. I don't even know what direction to call it, but if it's not serving a purpose of, it seems like that music doesn't educate. It seems like they don't want us to be educated in the music. I don't hear just like a balance of messages. And
they just want the money. They just want the money. Yeah.
But you know something?
This is a whole other hour and a half.
Right. It really is.
Don't get me started.
Cole, if I tell you how many times I've been told to dumb down my lyrics, I can't count the number of times I've been told to make it simpler. People, why do we underestimate what people can hear? Or why does the institution?
That's what I think.
Well, we don't. I don't.
Yeah. I'm not saying us. I'm saying I corrected myself. I said sort of the institution of the music business in parentheses.
They just want the money. But let's have a whole other hour talking about the music business, and I'm going to spill all the secrets.
How are we looking on time, Louis?
We are an hour and 15 minutes in, so I would like to address anything that you want to talk about for Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team, anything else you want to do. It's all you to wrap it up.
All right. So, you know, before I get into my thank you with Lisa and let Lisa share all the fabulous things that are happening with her for consideration and Note Speak 12, the reason that I formed the Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team was to provide a space that educated people as they volunteered. It's a grassroots space where all people are welcome, from all walks of life. Housed. I mean, it's like I can't even speak about it without feeling emotional, because I can't believe how much Housed and Houseless are working together, and you don't know who's who. It's a testimony every time I get up there and I work with the Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team. But the mission and the message is to say that I started this in New Orleans. There can be this started in every city, in every country in the world, because housing as a human right is a global issue. So the purpose of this program and the purpose of the videos and talking about it is to say to people, I'm no different than anybody else. I'm a singer, I'm a Black woman, I have my struggles, I'm not perfect, but what I do have is a moral compass and a heart that just guides me to the people. And for anybody watching and anybody listening, you can be the change that you want to see right now just by doing it. Where two or more are gathered, community is made. So find one partner and you guys start organizing together. Figure out how you're going to go and talk to the people in need and bring them aboard, and then start this collective organizing. So that's why we do what we do every Saturday at about 7:30 a.m. We meet at 3310 First Street in New Orleans. And we pack groceries from Trader Joe's and Culture Aid NOLA, distributed in the Hoffman Triangle, and we also distribute it under the Calliope Bridge. I'm so happy to be doing this work. I'm so happy to know someone like Lisa Marie Simmons that, whether you know it or not, just your presence is a constant inspiration. Us artists, we need inspiration and we need muses, and we just need people that pour something into us that keep us going. So I want to say thank you so much for being a part of this show. This felt like our morning conversation with Louis eavesdropping. And I also want to share where people can support you, support your album, buy your album, but also support what's happening in the future. Lisa and I are releasing a single, our first single at the end of the month. I gotta record. But I'm so inspired and impressed by you as like, not just a person, but as an artist. So please let people know how they can find you and support you.
You're so kind, and thank you for that. Don't want to toot my own horn too much, but you can find me at lisamariesimmons.com. And that's where you can find out more about me and read some of my work. I've also got a link tree that's on there that puts everything under one umbrella, because there are essays and there are poems, and there are songs spoken or sung. And yeah, we've got our new album out, which is Note Speak 12, and we are gunning for a Grammy in the spoken word poetry category. And so yes, we would love any support that you can give to that. Would be wonderful. My partner Marco Kremiskini and I are heading to New York to do an artist residency at Oninata. That's an amazing gift of time to continue this work. And then we will be performing at New Blue in New York City on November 16th. And we'll be in Philadelphia at the Painted Bride on November 18th. And there are some secret shows in the middle that we will reveal as we go along. So yeah, those are some of the ways that you can support and aid what we do. I'm eternally grateful to know these two people that I'm here with. Cole, I thank you, Louis, once more. I don't know how many times I've thanked you for this introduction to Cole, but we're making beautiful music together, and it's a deeply fulfilling friendship as well. You know, it's not just the art, it's the person, and actually the person that makes the art, maybe. You know, the two things are intertwined. But anyway, I love you, Cole. I love you, Louis, and I thank you for having me here.
Love you too, Lisa. You are my sister. And love you, Louis. Thank you so much for having this platform. And you're the only label that I know that puts social justice right up there with the music. You understand that it is a partnership. I couldn't do one without the other.
Yeah.
Much appreciation.
Thank you both. And just a comment on that Ropedo piece, I had gone back at the gym and listened to Antibalas, which is a 2004. We're about to enter our 25th year, so we're going to do all this. So I'm digging back into things. And Antibalas, the song Big Man, so it was there from the very beginning, and it's not us. It's you all. You know, you're ambassadors. You're talking about the problems of the world. You're working to. Musicians are working to heal the world, not just with music, but with action. You know, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
All right, how's the Houseless music in action?
There it is. All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you. Cole, real quickly. What's next month? We are back on
November 22nd, and we don't know if we're calling it the Thanksgiving edition, but we're going to have our we're trying to figure out a name, but we're going to have Culture Aid, Nola, and Grace at the Green Light back on to talk about, give us some updates, but also just to talk about what does housing and the houses and working with the houses community, what does that look like during the holiday season?
Let's just call it the Giving Edition.
The Giving Edition. I like that.
How about that? That's my branding advice. All right. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We're going to hear some music from New Orleans, of course. Big Sam's Funky Nation. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh, that's not good. It's still on.